Hello, ladies and gents. It's Proclamation News and Gavin's Flux with the Flow and Flux with the Show. It's the prodigious, the prominent Professor Johnson, PNG, Proclamation News and Gavin's. Think safety, think first. Do not enter the vehicle under sleep deprivation, under the influence of alcoholism, narcotics. Check your engine oil, your water coolant tank, make sure it's topped up to maximum level. Check your PSI limits, make sure your tyres not bowled. Make sure you and passengers on board have seatbelts. Hello, Farzad, how you doing now? Check for further police road instructions, further road safety signs. Check for road workers, make sure they're not leaving from behind house fencing. Drive vigilantly around roadworks just in case. Check your centre mirror and wing mirror before turning, acting into a safe, sufficient directional choice. Oh, good, my man. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you, Farzad. Thank you for coming through, really appreciate it. Anyone coming through on Castbox there, please give us a follow. Subscribe to the channel. You can Google us as well, Proclamation News and Gavin's. We're on YouTube, on podcast, on Spotify, Apple Podcast. Every show goes live on there, so you can always listen to the playback. Think safety, think first. Look at the car incidents inside the UK today. Before we move on, we've got Rwanda salt and pepper tax was going to go on the rise. Salt and pepper tax was going to go up, but they're trying to put a halt to it. It's ridiculous. Anyway, car incident in Chelmsford today. Moving forward. At Parkway, traffic signal failure on Parkway at Great Baddow Bypass, Van, Domains Road, Chelmsford Road, Army and Navy, approach with care on the roundabout following an accident on Monday. Wow, it can't still be there, surely not. Well, it's still there because it's showing it's still there. There we go. Kind of near Ilford, A503, traffic signal failure on A503, Seven Sisters Road at A107, Amherst Park, approach with care. A vehicle has struck the lights. Jubilee Street, road closed due to emergency repairs on Jubilee Street, southbound between Stepney Way and A13 Commercial Road. Road closed due to police incident on A4090 Whitton Avenue West, both ways between Oldfield Circus and Vernon Rise. Detour and operation bus service 487 is on diversion, shut between Westmisnter and Wood End Primary School. Near Milton Keynes. One lane closed due to stalled vehicle on M1 northbound from junction 13 A421 Bedford Road, Bedford, Milton Keynes south to junction 14 A509 Milton Keynes. Traffic is coping well. That is all the incidents for this morning. Moving on, we're going to share these car incidents. Thank you everyone for coming through, rapidly coming through a Proclamation News again. Appreciate everyone coming through to support the show. Rwanda asylum plan, UK court allows removal flight plan for Tuesday. A flight to take asylum seekers from the UK to Rwanda next Tuesday has been allowed to go ahead by the High Court. Campaigners failed in initial legal bid to hold removals to the East African country, but have confirmed they will take the case to the Court of Appeal on Monday. Under the policy, some of those entering the UK illegally will be flown to Rwanda to apply for asylum here. About 31 people have been told may be on the first flight. There will be a full judicial review, where the High Court will hear a challenge to the policy as a whole before the end of July heard. In his decision, the judge, Mr. Justice Swift, accepted there was a material public interest in Home Secretary Priti Patel being able to carry out her policies. Ms Patel praised his judgment and said the government would go ahead with its plans, while Prime Minister Boris Johnson described the ruling as welcome news. However, campaigners who brought the case expressed concern for the welfare of people set to forcibly be deported. It comes as the Time newspaper reports the Prince of Wales has been privately critical of the government's policy, quoting a source saying he thinks the approach is appalling. Prince Charles is to represent the Queen in Kigali, the Rwandan capital, at a Commonwealth summit later this month. His office reiterated he remains politically neutral. The government hopes the scheme will discourage asylum seekers from crossing the English Channel, making it clear many cases will now be dealt with by Rwanda. More than 10,000 people have made the dangerous sea journey so far this year. While the application is considered by Rwanda, those affected will be given accommodation, support, and, if successful, will be able to remain there with up to 5 years access to education and support. Those who failed in their asylum bids in Rwanda will be offered the chance to apply for visas under other immigration routes if they wish to remain in the country, but still could face deportation. Campaigners had to block the flight from leaving, as well as individual people being placed on it. The case was brought by lawyers representing asylum seekers set to be deported, alongside the Public and Commercial Services Union (PCS), which represents more than 8% of the UK's board of 4 staff and immigration charities Care for Calais and Detention Action. Their lawyers raised concerns about shortcomings in the Rwanda asylum system and the responsibility that people could be sent on to countries where they would be persecuted, the process known as refoulement. Home Office lawyers told the court the plan must not be stopped by legal changes because it was in the public interest, and also urged the people to reject changes on behalf of individual asylum seekers. At the hearing, the UN's refugee body, the UNHCR, also intervened to distance itself from the policy amid claims the Home Office has misprinted its position on the scheme. Lawyers from the UNHCR also said it had warned the Home Office twice that its arrangement with Rwanda was unlawful. Not conspicuously strong. In his judgment, Mr. Justice Swift ruled against the temporary block on the deportation flights before the full hearing on the policy in July. He said he did not consider there was any evidence there would be ill treatment, refoulement, or anything that violated their rights under Article 3 of the UK's Human Rights Act. Article 3 protects people from torture, inhumane or degrading treatment or punishment, and deportation or extradition to the country where there is real risk they will face torture or inhumane or degrading treatment. Mr. Justice Swift said part of the case to block the initial flights focused on the argument that Ms. Patel's decision to treat Rwanda as a safe country is either irrational or based on insufficient investigation. He said this argument, along with other parts of the case, would be heard with evidence and a full judicial review to be held across 2 days before the end of July. But Mr. Justice Swift noted that while the campaigners had enough evidence for review, the claim was not conspicuously strong. He also denied interim relief to 2 people facing removal Tuesday, one for Syria and another from Iraq, who are still set to be on the plane to Rwanda. I accept that the fact removal to Rwanda will be onerous, he added. However, the judge granted the campaigners and migrants the right to appeal against his decision and said the court appeal would be able to hear their case on Monday. From the judgment, Ms. Patel said the government would continue to deliver on progressing the plan. She said people will continue to try to prevent their relocation through the legal changes and last-minute claims, but we will not be deterred in breaking the deadly people struggling trade and ultimately saving lives. Rwanda is a safe country and has previously been recognised for providing a safe haven for refugees. We will continue preparations for the first flight to Rwanda, alongside a range of other measures intended to reduce small boat crossings. Mr Johnson tweeted, "We cannot allow people traffickers to put lives at risk, and our world-leading partnership will break the business model of these ruthless criminals." James Wilson, Deputy Director of Campaign Group Detention Action, said it was disappointed, but added there were some positives from the case. Nothing that 68 original claimants had their removal orders withdrawn by the Home Office in advance of the judgment. Claire Mosley, founder of Care for Calais, said the charity was deeply concerned for the welfare of the people who may be forcibly deported to Rwanda, a fate that could profoundly harm their mental health and future. PCS Union has called for urgent talks with Ms Patel to discuss the removal policy following the ruling. It's going to have a short amid break, ladies and gents, just while shedding Carlson's. Here we are, ladies and gents, back in the room. Just had to share some news. Why aren't wages keeping up with inflation? More than a fifth workers are struggling to afford to live. Amid the crisis we are living amongst right now, public austerity, there has been a huge amount of concern about rising inflation in recent months. It has been made worse by the fact that wage inflation has not been keeping up. A few workers in high-paid jobs have enjoyed high bonuses and inflation busting pay rises, but it's been reported that CEO pay has recovered to pre-pandemic levels, for instance, but for the majority of workers, higher price inflation is now eroding the real value of what they earn. More than a fifth of workers are struggling to afford the things they need to live. For them, the cost of living crisis is not some hackneyed political slogan, but a fact of life. It spells real hardship. Its resolution calls for rethinking of policies towards inflation and the economy more generally. Economic textbooks teach us that lower unemployment is a cause of higher wage inflation. Negative relationship between unemployment and wage growth forms the basis of this so-called Phillips curve. The textbooks also refer to the possibility of wage price spirals, where higher prices fuel higher wages. This way of thinking gained support from the experience of the 1970s, with high prices and high wages coexisted, leading to a period of stagflation. But the present shows us how price inflation and wage inflation can be decoupled as a challenge to economic theory. Workers are facing cuts in their real pay, with seemingly no prospect of wages catching up with headline inflation. This is despite the fact unemployment is low. Lower real living standards now represent the price of being in paid work and the cost of an economy that is jobs rich. Why the low wage inflation? Wages have actually been doldrums ever since the global financial crisis of 2007 to 2008. Real wages sank in the years immediately after that crisis, and although they were able to increase again on the back of very low inflation from 2012 onwards, they only returned to 2008 levels very recently. The fact that this is all they have achieved in a period of low unemployment is something of a paradox. It is not entirely clear how to explain this, but several factors are potentially important. First, there is a decline of union power together with the rise in firm power. Unlike the 1970s, British workers are not able to collectively demand and secure pay rises via union organisation. They face bargaining at the individual level, and the best way to get higher pay is often to find a new job. The increasing market power of firms also helps to explain why profits have risen. They're up to around 6% in real terms in 20 years compared to growth in workers' real wages of about 14%. Second, there are other measures of unemployment. While recorded unemployment has fallen, the actual level of unemployment is higher. Workers and capacity benefits in relatively large numbers, in particularly areas such as Wales and Scotland, would be in work if suitable jobs were available, but are not counted in the official unemployment status. The fact there has been a recent rise in economic inactivity, with workers, particularly older ones, exiting the labour force, and suggests some hidden unemployment. This matters because it implies that workers' bargaining power may be less than what the headline measures of unemployment suggests. Third, there is the role of lags. While wage inflation may not be risen by as much inflation now, in the coming months some argue it will begin to rise and perhaps even overtake price inflation. This argument has been put in the Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey, leading to call for wage restraint. But while the possibility of above inflation wage rises cannot be ruled out, it seems far-fetched to think that workers in all sectors and regions will be able to reassert their power in ways that protect their real wages. Indeed, Before any lags are realised, the prospect of wage inflation catching up with the headline inflation may be stifled by unemployment rising in response to economic contracting. Time for new policies. At present, central banks in the UK and other countries are fighting inflation by raising interest rates and reversing the money creation that they were doing under quantitative easing, with inflation forecast by the Bank of England to peak around 10%. In the next few months, this policy approach looks less and less convincing. Rather, new policies are needed to ensure that wages catch up with the headline inflation, especially if workers are not to suffer economic harm. It is a welcome step for the government. It's belated offering direct financial support to the least well-off in society to help world soil energy bills, while the government announced some time ago that it plans to increase corporation tax from 90% to 25% for most firms in 2023. It's only decided to impose a windfall tax on oil and gas companies to help pay for the support. Having previously resisted pressure to do so, the wider lesson from its U-turn is that the state has a responsibility to protect the economically disadvantaged, and that includes redistributing income in this way. Yes, it is concerning that support payments are one-offs. Will the government offer new cash transfer in the future if energy prices keep on rising? Its fiscally conservative instincts are likely to prevent this from happening. Wow, my goodness. We're going to look at a salt and sugar tax. Salt and sugar tax. How horrific is literally like grain. Why would you put salt and sugar tax? We ruled out from England. The government expected to reject proposals to introduce a new salt and sugar tax in England when it announces its food strategy next week. Madness, absolute madness. Monday's policy paper comes after Henry Dibley's review recommended taxing salt and sugar used by professional food restaurants and catering. Boris Johnson previously called the proposal unattractive, but the government saw stress its strategy would promote healthier diets. Labour said it failed to deliver. Government commissioned an independent review of the food system led by Leon restaurant chain founder Mr. Dimbleby. Last year, we recommended that the tax incentivise manufacturers to reduce salt and sugar in food to improve people's health. Mr. Dibley said money raised should be spent on addressing inequalities around food by expanding free school meals, funding holiday activity and food clubs, and providing healthier food to low-income families. It follows the level of sugary drinks implemented in 2018. The government is expected to accept many recommendations from Mr. Dibley's review, but the Prime Minister had said he did not want the strategy to impact on hard-working people. And the BBC political correspondent Jonathan Blake said that amid the rising cost of living and pressure on the Prime Minister from Conservative MPs to adopt more traditional Conservative policies, ruling out a salt and sugar tax would be no surprise. Instead, the government is expected to say its plan will create a food system aimed at maintaining and increasing production levels where possible, our correspondent has said. The government source said that the strategy will also say research is needed to determine the link between processed food and obesity, and in calorie intake is one of the drivers of obesity, particularly among children. Progress has already been made on reformulation, and there are various industry-backed initiatives that have shown the power of positive advertising to promote the consumption of healthy food. It's also expected that schools will be required to publish a food vision on their website. Jim McMahon, Shadow Secretary of the State of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, said a food strategy was vital, but the government appeared to have delayed and now failed to deliver. He said this is nothing more than a statement of vague intentions, not concrete proposals to tackle the major issue facing in our country. Going back to think safety, think first. M1, M11 shut for these 2 hours as emergency services deal with a serious crash. A diversion route has been put in place. The M11 is likely to be shut for at least 2 hours this morning, June the 10th. Following a serious crash, exit police said they are at the scene of the crash between junctions 4 and 5 northbound carriageway in Chicago. Car and lorry were involved in the incident, which happened early this morning. The road remains blocked and the traffic has been diverted elsewhere while emergency services deals with the incident. A spokesman for Essex police said, "We are on the scene of a serious collision on a northbound M11 at Chicago. The carriageway is closed while emergency services deal with the incident. We expect the road will remain closed for at least 2 hours. We were called to the incident which involved a car and lorry shortly before 6:15 a.m. this morning. We need anyone who witnessed the incident or dashcam footage to get in touch. If you have any information, you can submit a report online. Use our live chat button to speak to an online operator between 7 and 11 p.m. Please quote incident 134 of today, 10th of June. There are additional delays in N12 Gallows Corner, exit traffic in Forest District. A diversion route has been put in place. Motorists should follow the solid diamond signals from the North's Circuit and Waterfront Corner and head north on the A104 Woodford New Road for 6 miles to the Wakeham roundabout and head west on the A121 to M25 at junction 26 and clockwise back to M111. We are covering the incident in our new live blog where we'll share updates on the incident as soon as they're coming. Proclamation of the garage. Just going to quick break by and share the news. One more segment, agents. Dom Phillips. Possible human remains found in home for journalist. It's not a massive segment, we'll have a short break and we'll get to it and finish off the last segment. Proclamation news gathered to get this show wrapped up now. Dom Phillips. Possible human remains found in hunt for journalist. Brazilian police have found possible human remains in their search for UK journalist Dom Phillips and indigenous expert Peria. The police say experts will analyse the organic material found in the river near the town of Atalaia do Norte in the remote Amazon rainforest. The pair were missing while travelling by boat on a reporting trip on Sunday. Blood traces found on the boat belonging to a fisherman who has been arrested will also be tested. Indigenous groups say both men have received threats for their work in the region, which has seen illegal fishing, logging, mining and drug trafficking. The Brazilian authorities have said they are hopeful of finding the two men alive, but have not ruled out any outcome. According to the AFP news agency, both Mr. Peria, 41, and Mr. Phillips, 57, who has written for publications such as The Guardian and the Washington Post, are hugely experienced and planned their journeys thoroughly. They reportedly had a new boat and plenty of fuel. In London, the journalist's sister, Sian Phillips, called UK authorities to put pressure on the Brazilian government to find two men. We went to find out what happened to them, and we want anyone responsible for any criminal act to be brought to justice. We want a persistent, deep and open investigation, she said. The blood traces were found on a boat of fisherman Armadillo da Costa, known locally as Pelado, who have questioned in the town of Atalaia do Norte. He has been charged with illegal possession of restricted ammunition. Police say he was one of the last people to see Mr. Peria and Mr. Phillips. A lawyer for the fisherman, Abbey, told Reuters his client was not involved in the disappearance of the two men. The same lawyer has since stepped away from the case. The news agency adds 6 other people have been questioned in connection with the men's disappearance. Some 250 members of security forces have been taking part in the search, up from just about a dozen in the first days. They include divers and experts in jungle terrain. 2 helicopters are also being used, as well as more than a dozen boats and drones. The Brazilian government has been criticised as not acting fast enough to try to find the men. That's Proclamation News and Gavin's ladies and gents. Make sure you subscribe, come back. We're always trying to influence UK drivers to drive safely, not supporting offenders or re-offenders, but trying to guide people or give people a better chance of life, better direction, not to re-offend, not